Okay, so today is a pretty significant day as it's December the 3rd. The day I created my first channel way back in 2017. And with it now being 2022, that means I've been doing YouTube for 5 years. Let's get into the video. Okay, so SSRW pre-series 1 would take place in late 2016, probably around November. I was not long had just got into Robot Wars. My model making skills weren't great. I was using the Minibot Arena and my first champion was Flipperland. Here it is, still kicking, probably one of the oldest models I still have. Doesn't compete anymore. Competed until fairly recent actually. Their last sort of fights were early 2020. You can see it's got a big flipper on the front here, reinforced with coffee sticks. Inside there. This is made from a Easter thing. I don't know what it was. You can see it's yellowed over time as well. It's got the thing I used to do with all my flippers. I put a bit of sellotape on the end to make it lower to the ground. Yeah. SSRW Series 1 consisted of 5 heats of 4. The heats using the format for MLU4's Robot Wars Series 6 they were, so 4 robots in each round robin, 2 of the highest points at the end going to the heat final. In their heats, Flipperland faced Razor and Mute, you know what those look like, and a weird robot called Origami Bot, which was an origami wedge. It was basically, imagine Pinky from RWA but without a flipper. It was just a Rambot. But yeah, they beat Mute, beat Origami Bot, lost to Razor though after being pitted, but in the heat final fought Razor again where they won after Razor drove into the pit. Then in their grand final round 1, because it was 6 robots in the grand final, following after a wildcard was selected, it was following a Series 4 style heat. So in their first round of the grand final they fought, who was it? It was Storm and who else would it have been? I can't remember. Someone else. Storm was my sort of imaginary arc, because I didn't know what I knew what Storm 2 looked like, but I hadn't seen the original Storm at the time. So I made up my own. It was, I think the best way I can describe it is, imagine Weldor 3, but without the rear spinner and the wheels were on the inside. It was basically that, and it was brown instead of green, of course. But yeah, them and Storm went through. The other robot, I think it might have been Exterminator, was eliminated though. Then in their semi-finals of the grand final, yeah, that's confusing, they fought Apollo, and on quite a shock victory, because Apollo had just won the UK Championship in the real world at this point, Flipperland went through. Where in the final they faced another robot that had done pretty well that year, Carbide. My Carbide was weird at the time. It didn't have a fidget spinner in it. It was just a thing sitting on some kind of shaft. It wasn't Robot Combat model style either, because he didn't exist at the time. Well, he did exist, but his channel didn't. I basically drive it up to a robot, then spin the spinner really fast, so it would knock into a robot and send it away. And because the Minibot Arena has very low walls, quite often they'd go out. But Flipperland didn't. They went in quite a good performance against Carbide. It went to the judges and they ended up winning. As for their next performances, Series 2, which was the same format, not so well. I think they made the heat final. Series 2 and 3 I don't remember much, and then Series 3... Actually no, Series 2 I think they might have made the grand final, but went out fairly early. I think they got 3rd or 4th. And then Series 3 I really don't remember. I'm pretty sure it was a heat final though. Anyway, that's Flipperland's story. So let's see who we have next. Okay, SSRW pre-Series 2 would take place around mid-2017. Somewhere around then. And the winner would go on to be Foxic. Not this Foxic though. It was a very different Foxic. I did a sort of recreation of it sometime in 2020, although I can't be bothered to find that model at the moment. It was basically Vote Saxon 07's Storm 2, but orange and with a lifter fairly sloppily attached. But that was all you really needed to win back then, because most of my other models were of about the same quality. Foxic, I really don't remember much about their campaign. in the series. I remember the grand final they beat Behemoth by lifting them out of the arena. They had, I think it was them who beat Flippant in the grand final round 2, and I don't really remember much else of their campaign in the series. Although I do remember in Series 3 they did absolutely shocking. I think they went out in the heat. So either the heat or the heat final they went out. Yeah, and then Series 4 I don't even think they were in. No, they weren't. Flippant weren't in Series 4 either, I forgot to mention, because there's quite a jump from Series 3 to Series 4. There's a fairly large amount of time. My models improved and these old ones weren't so competitive. But yeah, that's Foxic. It's had a very up and down run in SSRW, even in the pre-series. It went from winning to heat final to not being in the series to actual televised Series 1, got 3rd. Televised Series 2 out in round 2, Televised Series 3 out in round 2. They are due a rebuild soon though. This version of Foxic's going to be retired literally after I finish this video, and I will be building a new one based on the new Foxic. So yeah, hopefully I can do well with that next one. But let's move on to our next robot. Okay, so SSRW Pre-Series 3 takes place late 2017, probably around October time, but that's just an estimate. It is won by Razor. This was the Razor model that competed. It is not in a good state. It had the claw at the time, of course, but the claw's missing now. It's missing both wheel guards. The rubber on that wheel's totally gone. It's mostly gone on that side. Yeah, the mechanism is dead. The front button's missing. Yeah, it's not in a good state whatsoever. So yeah, Razor won that. They beat Hypnodisc in the final in what was a really underwhelming fight, because Razor broke Hypnodisc's disc. It was the pit stop version, but they broke the disc of that about like 5 seconds into the fight, and then it's sort of just Razor pushing Hypnodisc around till it got them in the pit. And I don't really remember much of that. Series 3 is the one I remember the least of. Yeah, but then in Series 4 they would come back and went pretty far. They came 3rd in the end, made it to the grand final. In the 3rd place playoff they beat a robot called Future Technology or something stupid like that. My robot names were not very good back in the day, which is the only ram bot to really have any success in my series. It was a 4-wheel drive rammer built out of Lego, sort of designed to be anti-spinner. The wheels on the front were designed to come off, then the big chunky wheels on the back would be for pushing power. It was weird. I might resurrect it with an active weapon one day. But yeah, that's Razor's story. Razor doesn't compete in my series at the moment, but if it were to, I would use this version of Razor, which actually works properly. Can I? Yeah, there's the button. Yeah, Razor won SSRW Pre-Series 3. SSRW Pre-Series 4 would take place sometime around 2018. It was sort of a test run of SSRW Series 1 really, just see if I can handle doing quite a large series. Yeah, this time instead of the usual format I did basically the format that would go on to be SSRW Series 1 in the televised edition. It was at the time the biggest SSRW field ever. And in fact that record stood until Series 3 earlier this year. This would end up, so yeah, it was 6 heats of 6 semi-finals and the grand final. It ended up being won by Demolition Man, who I don't have here unfortunately, because they're currently being modified. They're being upgraded really, because they will be coming back for next year. So yeah, they had a pretty good ride. I don't remember who they faced in first and second round of the heat. I remember in the heat final I fought Choking Hazard, which was a cluster bot I made ages ago. I think I've got a picture of it somewhere. If I have, I'll put it in now. But it was sort of, one half was a crusher, so basically a downscaled Chompalot. The other half was a lifter. And I remember in the fight they threw the crusher all around the arena, and I remember they tore the lifter, a bit of it, in half. So yeah, and then semi-finals, I can't remember who they fought. But in the grand final, they beat... Who was it they beat? They beat Future Technology, who I mentioned earlier, and then in the grand final they went on to defeat Chaos 2 to become Pre-Series 4 champions. It was essentially the same as the one that went on to be in SSRW Series 1, really. Basically the same, some slight differences, because I did restore them a bit for the televised Series 1. But yeah, that's that, and that's all my pre-series champions. And so yeah, that was the story of all my pre-series champions. Hopefully you've enjoyed watching that, and hopefully that was a good celebration of 5 years on YouTube. Yep, I've wasted 5 years of my life on this site. And you know what's worse than that? Nothing. Why would there be anything worse than that? Anyway, you lot should probably go and, do something useful and productive now, so I'll get on with more of this. I'll see you all next time. Goodbye.